Are you tired of the rainbows and butterflies approach in multifamily investing, where everything unfolds seamlessly and everybody wins? You never see behind-the-scenes reality. If you resonate with our perspective, acknowledging that true insights emerge from navigating mistakes and challenges, then you're in the right place. Join Christy Keeton, your host, as she dives into the missteps and lessons learned encountered by active apartment operators. In these episodes, we embark on a journey to dissect and analyze the pitfalls within the multifamily project lifecycle, focusing on the crucial stages of finding, funding, fixing, or flipping a project. Instead of glossing over setbacks, we shine a spotlight on them, providing a valuable learning experience for our audience. Each episode concludes not only by revealing how the issue at hand was rectified, but also by sharing other priceless lessons derived from the experience. It's an unfiltered exploration of the multifamily investment landscape, revealing the intricate tapestry of challenges and solutions that make the journey worthwhile.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Multifamily Missteps. I'm your host, Christy Keeton, and today we have a special guest by the name of Bishoy Habib, and he is a real estate attorney. So that means he has seen a lot of mistakes in this arena. And so we're going to chat with him and see what it's all about. So welcome to the podcast, Bishoy, and I am so happy that you have decided to join us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Christy. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Okay. So now you're also an investor, you've also closed deals and all that. So tell me, as a real estate investor, a real estate investor / attorney, what got you started? How long have you been in the business? And let's just go from there.
So I take it back to my childhood. As the son of immigrant parents, we're Egyptian. It was me and my three sisters. And if you know anything about the Egyptian culture, there's other cultures that are like this, Indian cultures like this, where it's like you're being pushed to be a doctor or be medicine or a pharmacist or a dentist.
Yes.
It's that same culture. It's that same cultural pressure that is applied to us as kids. And so literally everybody that I grew up with in my entire circle in the Egyptian world is all in the medical field, over 90%. I've always just been rebellious and not wanted to do what everyone else was doing. So science never clicked for me or none of that. So my dad was a pharmacist by trade. And by the way, my three sisters are dentists. My mom was a dentist. So literally everybody's doing that.
You're really
But my
rebellious.
dad kind of, yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I kind of wonder sometimes if that's why I did it, just to rebel. But either way, my dad was a pharmacist, but then by the time I was born, he had switched careers into real estate and he had realized that was the path of financial freedom in this country. This was back in the 80s now. And so growing up, I always saw him as the real estate investor. He never worked as a pharmacist when I was around. And I just always thought it was neat that he could make his own schedule and he could pick us up when he wanted and take off when he wanted. And he worked harder than anyone. But the point was he made his own schedule. He called his own shots. And that was always appealing to me. And so from a young age, I looked at him. I was like, oh, I want to do real estate too, because I don't like people telling me what to do. And so from that point, I negotiated my first commercial lease when I was 15 years old with my dad. It was with the state of Florida as a tenant. And I was like, this is awesome. And this was like before Microsoft Word. So we were just like highlighting stuff and he was explaining things. And that was a neat experience. And so that began my journey into real estate. So I go to law school. I didn't really plan to practice law, but as I got out of law school, it was 2012. And the real estate market, for everybody on this podcast who knows the history, we didn't know it at the time. That was the best time to buy if we could go back. But at the time, we thought it was the worst time to buy because we had just been through a 4 or 5 year recession, the great financial crisis. And so there was no jobs. It was very tough in the real estate sector. The market was literally on the very beginning of its 10 or 12 year bull run or whatever you want to call it. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll use this law degree. And I worked at Marcus and Millichap as a multifamily guy here in Tampa, my last semester in law school, by the way. So it was the bar exam or staying with Marcus and Millichap. And I took the bar exam. And then I took my first job as an attorney was in New York City working for a hotel developer, the largest hotel developer in the New York, Manhattan in history. And so coming from Florida and going to that was eye-opening to me. And this was Florida back in 2010, 11, 12. So we didn't have the projects that we're having now. Now it's the last 15 years have been a big expansion, but it was a tremendous experience for me. It taught me a work ethic, which I did not have, at least not with that side of things at that point in my life. It taught me how, in New York, you got to work 80 hours a week just to stay on par. You're not really getting ahead of anyone. And so it's a concrete jungle. And I learned that pretty quickly when I fell flat my first couple months, but that kind of drove me and made me much, much better. After a couple years up there, I got my license in New York. I'm still barred up there, but I decided to move back down for family reasons. And when I moved back down, I kept doing the lawyer thing, started getting better at it, started getting better, took a real estate job, took a finance law job, and then finance job as an attorney. And then next thing you know, you look up and it's been 5, 6 years and you've gotten really good at what you do. You can help people, you can do things for people that they can't do for themselves, and you can see and feel your impact. And I think that was the point where I was like 7, 8 years in. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, I guess this is just what I am going to do, right? Like, I'm really good at it. Why would I stop? I could still do other things.
Yeah.
Initially, the legal door in the real estate world, and what I found out was being a real estate attorney is actually the best foot in the door. It connects me on the inside of so many deals, so many investors, the network that I have now. And so my real estate journey took me to where it is today, where last year, after 11 years out, I finally decided to open up my own law firm, Levacy Legal, based in Florida. And best decision I ever made. Funny story about that. Kind of I got married last year, and I literally didn't even know when I was, it was a lot of change in my life in a 2 month period. And on my honeymoon, I was still trying to figure out the law firm name. And then I came back and just went full send on the law firm. And so it's been a tremendous, from 2, 3 weeks into the law firm, I knew that was the absolute best decision I ever made in my life. And so 1 year in, we're in growth mode, and we do real estate business, estate planning, and litigation. And it's just been a tremendous experience so far.
Wow. Wow. What a journey you have had. That is amazing. Starting off with a commercial, not a residential, a commercial contract at the age of 15. Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations, first of all, for getting that. And kudos to your dad for pulling you in on that. A lot of dads are not necessarily willing to do that at such a young age, but I agree with you. The culture, I have been around that culture for quite some time. And a lot of them, I sponsored some children for a while, and they actually went to university for lawyer and doctors. So I'm like, okay, all right. So what I'd like to know going forward here is, like, you've had such an awesome journey of being an investor, of buying the properties. And now your main focus, it sounds like, is your law firm and being an attorney. So over the years, can you share with our listeners also missteps or mistakes that you can think of that might have come up? You don't have to use names or anything like that if you don't want to, but something that has really made an impact and made you go, we're not going to do that again. We'd love to hear some of those stories.
Yeah. So I could probably write a book about it, but I'll give you one good example. I'll give you one good example on the multifamily space, right? Let's keep it on point here. I had a client of mine who, I did not make this mistake, but I could have made this mistake, right? It was a good learning lesson for me. She became a client and a friend after that, but she told me about this. And it's the first thing I think of when I think of multifamily mistakes, because it's a little bit more subtle and it's a little bit more difficult to spot. There's a lot of common stuff I see, but it's a little bit more nuanced. But she bought the property from the owner of the seller, but she didn't sign or put in the purchase and sale agreement anything that the seller, she didn't put any non-solicitations, she didn't put any non-competes, she didn't put any kind of language. Unbeknownst to her, this seller had an apartment complex down the street, and he had all the contact information for the residents. And so he then started poaching them one by one. And so I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but let's say she paid $5 million for the property. Within a month or two, he had done all these new resident deals, brought half the people or maybe even more over to his property. And that property was now worth $3 million. I'm just hypothetically, but obviously it's value based on occupancy and the cash flow. And that was a dirty move, but she may still have a claim against him. But if it was in the PSA, the purchase and sale agreement, that there was a non-compete, a non-circumvention, a non-solicitation, you can't do that. And it's a very clear lawsuit against him for the diminution in value of the real estate. And so when I think of multifamily, that's what I think of. That one mistake. It's like potentially $1 million mistake if you fall into it.
I cannot even imagine that. Like, poaching the tenants from the property you just sold, Yeah, that could be multi-millions of dollars ultimately.
That's right. That's right. That's
Wow.
right.
Wow.
And I think it's something that's not common because
It's
usually if you're
not.
selling a multifamily, it's not likely you have one right next door, or at least not one that
Right.
you're going to keep and operate. So it's not something that comes up frequently, but it's on the radar now. It's on my radar.
Oh, for sure. And listeners, listen up. This needs to be on our radar. All of us needs to have this in our PSA for sure going forward.
That's right.
Especially
That's
these
right.
new guys. Listen. This right here is one of the best golden nuggets I think I've ever gotten on that podcast. And in general, just in the industry in general, I've closed several $1 million worth of multifamily, and I have never thought about that. And a lot of the properties that the owners have are right down the street. So oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you for dropping that for sure. So I'm
I didn't want to give you a generic one. I wanted to give you
no,
something a little bit more elevated, something actually pretty crazy.
I'm just, my mind is just like crazy. Why? How and why would you do that to somebody? So I have to ask, was it resolved and how did she come out at the end of that?
She lost money on it because it was in a different state where they were remote operators. So this was in Ohio. And she said it was like a cursed property is what she told me, because after that there was a shooting there and it just became a terrible situation. She lost money on it, but I gotta feel like that was the start of bad things. And if that didn't happen, who knows where it ends
Oh,
up,
for
right?
sure.
Maybe she still had it. But yeah, she took that as an L.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Wow. I appreciate you sharing that because it is. It's not a generic one. As you mentioned, it's not generic at all because we don't even think about things like that. We just have that trust factor, especially whenever it comes to the sellers. We're just like, okay, they've shown us all of this. And like, I could have never imagined. And I'm just going to say, stealing the tenants. That's literally what it was. And taking the property that you just sold down in value even further because of that. That's a little shady, Bishoy. That's just a little shady. I don't like that. Okay.
Very shady. Very shady.
Uh,
Not everybody has ethics like you, Christy.
oh,
That's the problem, unfortunately.
thanks. I appreciate that. Man, I just can't imagine doing that to anybody. If you're going to buy a property, you're going to sell a property, at least help the people succeed on the other end because
Yeah,
you're
thank
getting what you want out of the property. So anyway, I'll digress on that one. Is there anything that you can think of on that deal? So were you the attorney on that deal? Are you like the closing attorney? What part did you play in that particular?
I didn't play anything in that deal. So that's a client of mine who I didn't even meet until after this happened, but that's always the first story I think of
Yeah.
when I think of this stuff. Like now, anytime I'm reviewing multifamily, that's on the top of my mind. Obviously, I wanted to share that relevant nugget with the
Thank you.
viewers,
Thank you. Yeah.
but that wasn't my deal. But I'm not saying that couldn't have happened to me. That could have happened to anybody. The whole practice of law is just, in a weird way, it makes us cynical. And I try to combat that. I don't think I'm too cynical, but when I have my lawyer hat on, I have to be, because our
Yeah.
whole job is thinking, what crazy thing could happen in this scenario? What is the craziest thing that could happen
Yeah.
that could cause risk or liability to my client? And then try to mitigate that. And so, but you can't foresee what's going to happen. You can't. A lot of times it's the first time it's ever happened, or nobody could have seen it happening. And
Wow.
so it could happen to anyone. You just gotta, that's why experience matters tremendously. That's why having a good attorney matters tremendously. I'm dealing
Yeah.
with these issues every day, all day. I'm hearing about their issue, their issue, their issue, and their issue. So
Yeah.
I know all the problems that are happening. You, as a first time investor or a first time syndicator, you don't know the issues because you only know what you know. And so I think that's the importance of having a seasoned and experienced real estate team and legal
Yes.
team side.
I agree. I agree, Bishoy. I agree. And so had she just had that language in that, and I don't even know that he would have even tried, or if he was
No.
inexperienced, he might have still tried, but there would have been some repercussions on his part. So yes, put the language, no circumvent. Don't steal my tenants. Just put that language in there right there. Just don't steal my tenants. That would be
That's right.
great, right?
Right.
Okay, so is there anything that you can tell us about, like, let's take off the attorney hat for a minute. Let's put on the investor hat. What
Yep.
mistakes as an investor can you think of? Just a golden nugget that you can drop to our value add listeners here that maybe you have gone through as an investor, not just necessarily as an attorney.
I think that you got to partner with the right people. And again, as an attorney, I always see the bad stuff, right? I always joke and tell people like nobody calls me because they have good news typically as an attorney. Always like, hey, Bishoy, what's up, man? Great news. I just made a ton of money. That's not the calls I get,
That's
unfortunately.
not it.
It's usually, hey, this guy's supposed to give me $500,000 and he hasn't paid me. Hey, we went into this joint venture, this JV agreement, and he's not doing his part. Can I sue him? Can I get my money back? It's always, and I also got involved in a partnership at some point on the investment side with somebody that I trusted. He was a client of mine. I saw him closing deals, and so I invested with him, and he turned out to be a scam artist. And I saw the deals, I saw the stuff coming through, but sometimes you just still have to be careful with that. That's something that I always caution, be careful who you're getting in bed with. And the other thing is, this is a legal thing, but never hold real estate in your personal name. It's a rookie mistake. There's no reason to subject yourself to personal liability on that front. So for the first time or the newer people in real estate, that's just a very easy tip. It's free to implement. It might cost a couple $100 to make an LLC, but it's 100% worth it every single time. And in certain states, land trusts. I'm in Florida. We have the best land trusts in the entire country. We have the best land trust laws in the entire country. If you are an investor, you should be using land trusts, at least in the state of Florida. So protect yourself. Do not hold real estate in your personal name. What happens if something goes bad?
Yeah.
Your entire life savings could be wiped out. And that's not
Yeah.
an exaggeration.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Great advice there. Yeah, I have seen people lose their tail because it was in their private name. So, all right, let's talk about what inspires you. So, give us just one thing, just one little thing. What inspires you? I like
Yeah,
the
my
smile.
why.
That's great.
What's that?
I said I like the smile. That's great.
Yeah, my why. I would say my mom. My mom definitely inspires me a lot. She's not with us anymore, but she's definitely a big part. And then I got married recently, so my wife as well. It definitely changes your perspective being having somebody there that you're representing that person. You always want to do the best.
Yeah.
And so I think those two women in my life are definitely my whys.
I love that. I love that. And that just speaks volumes about the people that are around you. And I appreciate that very much. Okay. So there's a couple of questions that I ask at the end of every podcast. Let's talk about those for a second. So the first thing is, besides Multifamily Missteps, the best podcast out there, what is another podcast that you would recommend that somebody listen to?
Oh, that's a good
Oh,
question. I will tell you what's a good YouTube channel. How about that? There are a few really good YouTube channels, but I'm a YouTube guy, right? I got YouTube Red. Every single morning I wake up, I stretch, that's my morning routine. I have my coffee, I stretch, just meditate a little, and I play YouTube. And what I play on YouTube is always some educational videos.
okay.
Minority Mindset
Oh,
Minority Mindset is
awesome.
one of the best YouTube channels out there. Every day he's just spitting facts and he's explaining what's going on. He cuts videos almost every day, at least it feels like it. And especially with this craziness going on in the market now,
Yeah.
it's really impressive because I've started doing social media recently and it's hard to get content so like live up to the minute. Like when I shoot videos, I got to edit them and things like that. And they take days to cut and edit. And this
Yeah.
guy's shooting like 25, 30-minute videos about what happened the day before or that day, sometimes the same day. So it's really impressive. And he just
Minority
breaks it down
mindset.
in minority mindset. And he breaks it down in such a way that anybody could understand. You don't have to be an expert. That's, I think, why he's so good is that anybody that's listening can understand, but it's not so elementary that somebody who's experienced can't learn from it either. So that's probably one of my go-tos right now. And I'm a
Awesome.
big Tony Robbins guy. Don't throw Tony Robbins on
Tony
around me.
Robbins. Keep checking. Yeah, I love Tony Robbins. He's great. He's great. Probably the top motivational speaker on the planet, in my opinion. And he's
Oh yeah.
a great encourager. So good at encouraging people. Okay, what is one of the recent books you read, and would you recommend it?
Buy Back Your Time is a book I'm reading now. I'm almost through it. I'll tell you why I read it because I watched this interview one time and it was a billionaire and they're like, what makes you a billionaire versus somebody else who has the same time as you and they don't have any money and they're lost. And he's like, well, it's all about time management. It's all about delegating the things that you don't have to be doing because you're not good at everything and you're better at a lot of things than other people. So if you figure out your sweet spot and what you're best at, you need to delegate all the other things. So if you're really good at
Mm,
sales, maybe you do that all day and you delegate the admin and the marketing and the
yeah.
business development and the financials. And so that book has been phenomenal. I have the law firm that I manage. That's about 70% of my time. I'm a real estate broker. We got about 20 agents here in Florida for Capstar Real Estate. And then we
Okay.
have Capstar Investment, which is the investment company. We got about a dozen employees, me and my two business partners in that. And so what I've learned, you can't be involved in every decision. You have to
Yeah.
relinquish that and you have to empower people to do that. And that's what buying back your time is putting the right people in the right seats
Yeah.
and just being at the top and trusting those people, empowering those people. I think that's a very hard concept for a lot of people in business, especially
Yeah.
when they're getting started to do, is to relinquish that power. So, but I will tell you what, 1 year ago when I started my law firm, it was just me, myself, and I was answering the phones, I was doing emails, and that's how every attorney starts. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But nothing was getting done because it was all sending an invoice took me like 20 or 30 minutes, doing the billing, putting together an engagement agreement. That's not the best use of my time. Now I'm at a point where I have an assistant who's doing all the admin tasks and my quality of life has just gone up tremendously just from having her available. And every day we kind of work more and more together to where I can already see, okay, now I have more time to go do the things that are going to elevate my business. I just reinvest that time into higher purpose things like
Yes.
bringing in more business, like marketing, branding myself, things like that. So buy back your time is absolutely a book you should look to read if you're looking to scale your business, whatever that business is.
That's amazing. I will be reading that book soon because I know that I need to buy back some time. I need to grab an assistant or two as well on different categories of my life. So thank you so much for sharing that. Okay,
Yeah.
Bishoy, how do people get in touch with you if they need an attorney or if they want to invest or if they want to buy an investment property? How do they get in touch with you?
So I'm on all socials. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. At the handle is at Attorney Bishoy, attorney spelled out
Okay.
Bishoy. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's just under my name, which you see down there, Bishoy M Habib.
Mhm.
And then the law firm's name is Levacy Legal. So think of it, leave a legacy, Levacy
Love that.
legal.com. Yeah, Levacy legal.com. 813-553-2699 if you're still dialing from your landline at home. And then Capstar is the name of the brokerage, Capstar Real Estate.
And that's also the investment firm as well. Yes. Capstone.
Yeah, so Capstar Real Estate's the brokerage, Capstar Investments
I
the
love it.
investment side. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being here and dropping a bomb on our listeners because those nuggets were nuggets that I have not heard before, even with me being in
Love
the
it.
industry for a long time. So you added some massive, massive value to the listeners. Thank you so much. And family, if you don't get something out of Mr. Bishoy's podcast today, I don't even know what to tell you. He was dropping bombs. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Multifamily Missteps. Your dedication to our podcast is truly appreciated. Please help us spread the word and make our community even stronger. The valuable lessons that our guests bring each episode will help you and others avoid these missteps along your journey. Hit the subscribe button, take a screenshot of the episode you just listened to, post it on your social media, and tag myself and my friend Jerome Myers. You never know, you might find yourself our next featured guest. I cannot wait to continue this journey with you. Until next week, stay tuned and stay inspired.